Andrew Phelps was named one of Arizona Republic's 35 entrepreneurs under 35. He is a Seed Spot mentor and content matter expert of the year. He speaks about strategy, design, and entrepreneurship at ASU, GCU, AZ Tech Council, and the CleanTech Open. He has conceptualized new products for some of the largest software companies in the world and bootstrapped SaaS company MVPs. An expert in product strategy and design, he understands that every client is different and good design is just good business.
Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
So thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your story, sort of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So my background's in design. If you want to go all the way back, I've always been a little bit entrepreneurial. I walked dogs and babysat when I was really young. And then in my teenage years, did a lot of kind of paintball, gun and equipment buying and selling. And, was always looking for a way to make a profit. In college, I ended up studying graphic design, which they call visual communications at the University of Arizona. And I got really fascinated with just how important visual design is, because at the end of the day, everything we do is communication, and the visual storytelling is just so important. And so it's something that we see a ton, we see it everywhere, and most of it is bad. And so when you see it when it's good, it's nice, and you realize the difference it makes. And then when you see it and it's great, you realize its true power. And just like any other piece of art or storytelling, it has the ability to change, the conversation or change the way we look at things. And so I really had a foundational education in graphic design, and I was really interested in an area of graphic design called Wayfinding Design, which is signs and systems of signs in public places. So when you're in a downtown area or at a stadium, there's signs to help you get around. The folks who design those systems and signs are called wayfinding designers. And the thing that fascinated me about it was that if you do it well, no one notices, because everybody gets where they're going. No one thinks about it twice. And there's something really compelling about that to me, where you have to take all this care and all this passion to solve these problems, and at the end of the day, no one notices. But you made their life, easier. And carefree. And I think there's a powerful statement in wayfinding about public trust. We look to signs for direction, but you're putting trust in society and putting trust in someone else's work to get where you're going. And those are the kind of fundamental ideas that excite me about all things in design. But getting a little bit off track, after college, I was not able to get a job as a wayfinding designer like I hoped, or at least not easily. I only applied to, my dream spot, and it didn't happen. But with that kind of sense of wanting to do something entrepreneurial, I decided to just start freelancing. So I moved back home with my parents after college and started doing very small freelance graphic design jobs, which included coupons, brochures, everything that would make you not want to be a graphic designer for your entire life. Plenty of business cards, plenty of, boring things. But around that time, the sort of startup revolution was really starting to happen in terms of it being a widespread thing in Silicon Valley. And user experience design, or UX design, was just starting to become a field in the mainstream. And folks were trying to, make software and make money, and they needed UX designers, the people who decide where the button goes on the screen, what the button looks like, why it's there, how you organize all the information in a piece of software so it's actually usable. because the code is obviously there for the computer to make things happen, but the interface is there for the human to use the code to make things happen. And a UX designer or a user interface designer, there's some small differences between the two, and there's a lot of overlap, but we concentrate on organizing all that information so people can actually use computer systems. And at the time, those were the highest paying freelance gigs. And I had pretty much zero experience. I built some websites with a friend of mine who's now my business partner, and that was it. So it was a little bit of a fake it till you make it, but doing these really low, $1,000, $2,000 jobs, low paying jobs, but it was still double what I was making for a brochure or 10 times what I was making for a business card or whatever. So, and I really liked it. I loved the challenge of, there was a lot more engineering and a lot more science involved in terms of getting things to work right, and making sure that they were intuitive. And I loved the aspect of it. It was similar to wayfinding, where a lot of the decisions were objective. When you're dealing with just layout and just visual design, there are a lot of objective decisions to be made, but people don't see it that way. And it's often devolves into a subjective conversation of, well, I like it green, I like it blue. And, that's just not that fulfilling of work for me. And so I was really captivated by the idea that we said, well, the button works better here because, the 4 people we showed it to were expecting it there, and that sort of thing. So we can make those objective decisions and move forward with the project and feel like we're having an impact. So starting doing that freelance gig, I saved enough money to move to a cheap $500 a month, shared room apartment, after about a year of living at home. And, at the time that was cloud nine. That was it. I was like, I'm self-employed and on my own, and my parents are still paying the cell phone and I'm still on their health insurance. But besides that, I'm pretty
set.
Yeah, I'm independent. This is the life I dreamed of. And, I think that's good. I think it's great to have the goal, always setting the next goal for yourself. And obviously my goals have evolved since then, because you learn what you're capable of, and you learn and you grow, and you want to challenge yourself. But it's fun to look back and think about, how far you've come as well. So at the time, continue doing freelance stuff, more web and UX type work, but still plenty of the stuff to pay those limited bills. And that's when, after we had really gotten good at doing websites, and we got the opportunity, Josh and I, to help a small business revamp their website because they were losing customers. It was a side business for a neighbor of my parents. He did healthy meal delivery. He was a former NFL player and did healthy meal delivery. And, he thought for athletes who wanted to make sure they were getting the right nutrition, but didn't want to do all their own cooking and that sort of thing. So it was a side business for athletes, and his ads were converting really well online, which is a difficult piece of the puzzle, but he wasn't getting new customers and he was losing existing customers. And so we got the opportunity to kind of dig in on the website. But what we really found out was, in applying the design process and looking at everything, looking through every step of his customer's journey, we were able to identify all these things that we thought might be problematic or might, be causing some of these issues for him. So looking at every piece of that and looking at, the research, first thing we do is look at his customers. Who are his customers? Well, his customers were not all athletes. In fact, 75% of them were women who did not identify as athletes. They identified as people who wanted to live a healthy, balanced life. So if you can imagine, the language, the look, the feel of everything he had was for what he was,
right.
Was an athlete looking for extreme performance and looking for all these things, but his happy customer base was actually not that person, right? And so that's where things get so exciting for me and exciting for us, is that's where design can have this impact. You start to play with things. You create a hypothesis like, well, what if it looks more gender neutral? Or what if it even looks a little feminine? And what if it looks very welcoming to all the people who don't feel like they're athletes or extreme athletes, right?
Right.
And you start to make these tweaks to the brand, the language, and the story you tell on the website. And then you also get into some of the more nitty gritty UX stuff. So when people were signing up for all these meals on signing up for his program, they had to select the meals they wanted, they select the ingredients they wanted. The whole thing took a long time, and it was kind of hard to use. And so we reimagined how that worked. And it's the smallest things, like we put the bare minimum stuff before you paid. So once you were paid, you were kind of bought in, and then you could do the more time intensive work. Also things like, the simplest things, the ingredients, rather than checking the ones you were interested in, you unchecked the ones you weren't interested in. So instead of checking 125 boxes, you had to uncheck 5 or 10, or maybe 125 if you're really picky eater. But we made these tweaks, and if I'm rambling on too long, it's just because I get excited talking about it. But that was really an addictive starting point, because when we relaunched the website, his business tripled its number of customers in 30 days. 6 months in, he'd grown 500%. He quit his day job, and now I don't know how big he is now, but he's got tons of employees, and it's a business that grew. And I was in my early 20s, and I was lucky enough to have that opportunity and really feel the impact that the work we did had on someone's business, but also someone's life, because it changed his career, it changed his path. And that kind of got me hooked on these ideas and how powerful design and technology is to create change for people. And so I guess going back to the background story, kept freelancing for a couple of years, started working with a company called User 10, which is the company I'm a partner of now. And it's gone through a couple of different iterations with different partners, having slightly different missions and goals. But now we're a design studio focused exclusively on user experience design and user interface design. And we work on web applications, mobile applications, mostly for software as a service companies. So I did a huge jump there between kind of the most meaningful project in my early career to where we are today. But that, those are the things that stick out to me. That's why I do what I do, and what gets me really excited to go to work every day.
And I think it's true, like what you were saying about, just the small tweaks, is having someone else be able to look at your website for that. Because quite often as business owners, we've worked on it from the ground up. So we have more information in our head, as opposed to the user who's just coming onto the website, who goes like, we've all been there. We've all hit a website and been like, okay, I just can't order this. Like, I'm just done. Like, we want the simplicity ourselves. So I think, I love what you said, even the tweak of unchecking the boxes instead of checking all of the ones. Like, it's such a simple, like, in hearing you say it, I'm like, well, that's such a simple idea. But I know I would never have thought of that, right? Because you kind of get that stuck in your head. So, so what is, like, tell us a little bit more about some of the biggest misconceptions. So we've already said, like, UI is the user interface design, whereas UX is the user experience design. But what are the biggest misconceptions about those two?
Gotcha. So just to break it down, I guess, a little bit clearer. So traditionally, a UX designer is organizing more what you'd call like the blueprint of the software. So where things go, if let's say it's like a sign up flow, right? And we need a bunch of information from you, or in that example of the food delivery, we need to know which ingredients you want, how many meals a week you want, all that stuff. A UX designer will say, this should be 5 different steps, and this is what should be on each step. And a user interface designer is someone who specializes in the visual design of interfaces. So that's very much the language of the controls, how it matches the brand, the look, the feel. How do you take what the user experience designer created in terms of architecture, engineering, and make it beautiful, on brand, and make it a human experience. So one's more kind of engineering, one's a little bit more art, but there's tons of overlap, and the best designers can do both. Usually someone's a little stronger at one or the other.
Right.
So I hope that clarifies it a little bit. I think the biggest misconceptions about UX and UI design are that it has to be expensive. It has to be, this super technical thing that the designers have the answers. It's really the design process and, what's been popularized as the design thinking process, which is you try to identify problems, you you create a hypothesis, you make stuff to try to solve the problems, and you see what happens, and you do that again and again and again and again and again. So, the the big expensive companies are going to do it really well, but all they're doing is applying the process and applying the process with very talented, experienced people. But you can take your website and have 15 people look at it and get on a video call and, ask specific questions. Like, we have a new product, we have a new offering, whatever it is you're trying to learn, you come up with a list of questions that you'd ask someone looking at your website. And it can be about your navigation, right? Like, well, where would you go for catering, right? And if they can't find it, then you need to revisit your navigation and come up with a new idea of how people find the catering, right? You can also ask for general feedback. How do you feel when you land on this page? What does it say to you? What brands does it feel like to you? And you'll be surprised what people are getting from your brand versus what you think you're putting out there. And the closer that you can get those two things aligned, the better you're better position you're gonna be in. So I think, to sum it up, the misconception is that it's, highly technical field and it's smoke and mirrors, but I think the reality is it can be done at a very basic level, and that's user research and trying new things. And I think you can make huge changes in your business with those very simple things.
And I think too, one of the key points that I got out of what you had mentioned before is we quite often in our heads have an idea of who our target market is, but sometimes doing that research, you realize that who you thought you were reaching out to isn't maybe necessarily who's latching onto you. Like in your example that you had given where he was, targeting high athletes, but that's not who wanted his services. So really reassessing that, because we hear that, who's your target market? And we all know who we would love, like our ideal client. But sometimes, and I've learned that in business, that who I thought my ideal client wasn't necessarily the one that was willing to open their wallet. And that at the end of the day is who I needed. So what's something, that a business owner now, besides going out, reaching out to, even the current audience that they have to get some feedback, what is one tip that you can give that maybe that you see as a common mistake that, new businesses are making on their website? Because there's so much out there for, template design. And, we see it all of the time, the drag and drop, which I love because coding doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm so glad there's experts to do it. But if there's a tip that you could give somebody just to get started, what would one of those be?
Yeah, I think the tip is start with words, start with writing. And if you can't write a Word document about what you do and what your services are, you can't make a good website about what you do and what your services are. It's the foundation of how we communicate. And I've joked with my designers that if I ever start a design school, the entire first year will just be writing and typography, and you won't be able to use any color or anything else, because it's the foundation of everything we do. And being able to tell the compelling story about what you do, and sending that to people, you're going to get way further. And then, okay, this sentence really hits the nail on the head of what we do, what we're good at, and why people come to us. Well, that's what your main heading is on that drag and drop builder, right? And then you can put a beautiful photo behind it, and you can make sure that it has enough contrast to read. But, that's going to get you miles ahead. And I think that's where it's important to think about process. But I start with writing, starting with that story. Who are you, coming off of a page? And then the ability of graphic and visual design to enhance that is incredible, but you need that solid foundation. And so many small businesses, they try to just put everything they can on the website. Like, it's all right here, read it all. We got everything you need, and what most, these are not my ideas, but the most powerful thing you can do, as a small business is really position yourself as one specific thing. And it's the scariest thing to do when you feel like you need every client to pay the bills. But if you can have the courage and discipline to start to figure it out, saying, what, we only do this for these people, it's the most powerful thing you can do to grow and scale your business. And so creating that story of what you do and who you do it for, and challenging yourself to limit it to one thing. Now, other people are going to come to you. There's going to be that other business, but there's such power in saying you do one thing. And the example that Greg Head uses is Chick-fil-A, right? They just do chicken sandwiches, and they were a smaller fast food type place that did everything. And then when they switched to just making the best chicken sandwich, you can look at where they are now. And the same thing is true for small businesses. So getting that concise, compelling story and a strong position of what you do and who you do it for, that's fundamental to making the shift from being a small business with a homemade website to, a higher tier.
And I think that's true, because I think a lot of people get scared of doing that because they say, well, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I don't want to, I don't want to lose, but if I just put a big net out, I'll catch, more fish, kind of thing. But I agree with you. I think that was probably one of the scariest things I know, even for myself, was really targeting down and going, who actually do I want to work with? Like, who, sets my soul on fire, and really, really saying, this is what I do. This is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm an expert at. Because we're missing that, right? We see it all of the time. And I'm guilty of it too, right? You get the 5 subtitles on your name, you end up being a jack of all trades kind of thing. So when you were, coming up and, in business and starting out as an entrepreneur and stuff, what's one of the obstacles that you found that you really faced in business?
I think early on it was my personal issues of self-esteem or lack of confidence certainly trickled over into my career in every aspect of my life. And so gaining some of that confidence and overcoming sort of, imposter syndrome feelings was a big part of my early development, especially as a freelancer, because you think, I'm doing these small little jobs and I'm paying my small bills, but maybe I get an opportunity to go do a bigger job. Maybe this one's, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. Like, oh my God, am I qualified to do that? Am I the person that should be sitting at the table, going to their office in my old car? Like, all these feelings of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not the one to do this. And who do I think I am asking for that kind of money, that sort of thing. And so it was an evolution of, I don't like the term fake it till you make it, because it implies that you're being dishonest. But I think the core of it is that sometimes you need to, shoot for 5% better than you are. And if you can shoot for 5% better than you are before you know it, you're 5% better. And if you do that over and over again, you get to a point. And I think that's where the core of that saying comes from. But I'm a big believer in that, is that you have to have the discipline and the courage to say, I'm totally uncomfortable. This is way out of my league, but I'm going to go sit at that table and be 5% better than I think I am, And most of the time that's enough. And you get the gig and you do it again. And then the next time you get an opportunity for a job 3 times that size, you get the feeling back and you're sweating and the whole thing happens again. But if you do that enough and you do it long enough, you start to gain real confidence, and you start to learn from the projects you do and your happy customers and the impact you have with your projects. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not a fake, like maybe I'm self-taught, and there's a difference. But learning that about myself, coaching myself through that, getting help from, counselors and friends, and, starting to deal with reality rather than my reality. And I find it's an issue, especially with people who are deep thinkers or who are very analytical. They have a powerful mind that's good at solving problems, but it's also good at making problems. And that was one of the things that I definitely had to overcome. And it's not in my past. There are issues I deal with to this day, and a lot more peaceful, a lot more comfortable in that journey and improving. But it's everybody has aspects of themselves that they're going to want to continue to learn and work on for their entire life. And accepting that and embracing that was a big shift for me.
And I think too, when you had talked about remembering the feeling that you had when you were finally in that, $500 shared room kind of thing, that we don't do that enough. And, we always hear about people like, setting your goals, what's your next goal, push yourself harder, but actually taking that time to, stop and look back and realize that where you were a couple of months ago, like where you were in that apartment, that was a dream at one time and you accomplished that dream. But we forget to look back and go, look at how much I've done. We're always looking forward. And I think that that's great that you were able to do that, is to look back and go, hey, when I was there, I thought I had made it. So everything now is gravy. Look how far I've come now from that point. So looking, now that I say that, look back. So now looking forward, what is on the horizon for you? What are you striving for now? What's a project or whatever that really excites you?
Well, I'm lucky enough to have a bunch of projects that excite me. We have great clients, and back to the point about positioning, one of the things we've been very disciplined about over the past 3 or 4 years is being very selective with our clients. And that means turning money down, and that means turning a lot of money down. But understanding who your ideal client is. And for us, it's a personality. It's a collaborative person who values what we do, who trusts us to lead, but really participates with their, expertise. And finding those good fits is what our business is all about. It makes going to work every day a joy, because you're working with people that you like working with, and you're solving problems together. And it's just so fulfilling, and they have interesting products and interesting businesses. And that's a lot of fun. Some of the things that are exciting beyond my kind of day-to-day or hour-to-hour work, we've been growing our design team, and over the last 6 months have really been learning about how to manage people, but specifically designers, and what the ins and outs of that are. And I hope I'm doing a pretty good job, but I'm asking my team for a lot of feedback. There you go, the design process, out of the world of design. But I've had so much fun. It's a totally different experience for me. There's, as much as I try to limit it, there's some ego in design and wanting to make things beautiful and cool and great and bold and all these things. But if it's so fulfilling to watch our designers create amazing work and create things that I could never do, and it's just an entirely new experience. And so that kind of impact, feeling that impact for, that we can do more projects and they can be better. And, it comes from that collaboration. That's really exciting to me. And then on the entrepreneurship side, we've worked with a lot of software as a service companies. And you only have to help them, raise that next round of money before you start thinking, wait, shouldn't we make one of these for ourselves, And we've had some ideas over the years based on what our customers were looking for. And so actually just next week, we'll be beta testing our sales incentive platform called Incentive Pilot with all of our existing customers who are on different systems, including some big enterprises. So we're really excited for that. And that's kind of a big piece of the second half of this year is the owners of User 10 are building their own SaaS business, and seeing if we can grow both businesses and use what we learn from our clients at User 10 on Incentive Pilot. And then on the flip side, use what we learn growing Incentive Pilot to help our clients at User 10 navigate some of those SaaS industry challenges.
That's incredible. So one of the things that I always ask on my questionnaires is one of the most memorable pieces of advice that you've received, and yours killed me. I loved it. So you said, you can't know what's best for others. You can only know what is best for yourself. And at the end of the day, we shit into clean water. So I loved it, because the end, I was just like, okay, that's perfect. Just loved it. But what does that mean to you? Why did you pick that as one of your most memorable pieces?
I think that as human beings, you know, we are the same as the folks who looked up at the stars 40,000 years ago and wondered why we're here and what it's all about, and all those things. And so I think there's a lot of ideas from Buddhism where suffering is inherent to being a human being, even when our lives are so comfortable and so incredibly complex. Like, we've built these incredible complex systems that make our lives so incredibly comfortable. And even when you're in that position, you have the struggles of a human being not knowing these things. And so I guess it's trying to put that all in perspective, where it's like, how many of these problems are actually problems? How many of these, issues or struggles or things that can be solved? And how much of it do we just have to make peace with that we're humans, and it's a weird experience, and everyone has a different one, and it's hard and it's easy and it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's painful. And, so trying to let go of, can I make this better about myself? Can this be better? Can my life, the end of "you shit into clean water" is something a good friend of mine, Greg Janofsky, said. And it's just a reminder, like, for those of us in the first world with clean water, how bad is your life if that's how abundant, water is for us, and how cheap it is, and how much in our life is that cheap and that abundant, and we don't really have to worry about it. And so, it's a perspective of gratitude, while acknowledging that being a human being, is a journey and a hardship in itself. And so I think a lot of that is to remind me to celebrate the good things, and remind me to, honor the things in life that are beautiful and that make being a human being worth it and being alive worth it. Because if you don't, and you're only focused on the negative, or even if you're just, 50-50, like, or 60-40, like, it's not worth it. The hard parts of life are so hard. The good parts of life need to be that good to balance it out. And you need to honor them and treasure them and keep things in perspective. At least I do. I shouldn't say you. I do, because we are.
No, I think that's so true. My husband is so bad when people ask him how he's doing, and he'll go, 60-40. I'm like, you don't understand how percentages work. Stop saying that. Like, it's horrible. I hate that saying. So when you said it, I was like, it just triggered that thing in me where I was like, But I think it's true. And I think so often we see people that, are mentors to us, or that we look up to, or, are at the point that we want to be at. And we always go, it must be nice, but not realizing that they're going through some of the same stuff that, that we are. And I see that a lot, even like when I do speaking, that people are like, I just wish I could be like you and get up on stage and just not have a care in the world. And I'm like, oh, honey, that's not what's happening. It's just, I've learned to mask it a little bit better, but I still have all of the fears. Like, you just hope, I still get off the stage and, and go, boy, I hope I didn't bomb that, and I think that was so funny. And for me, realizing that was actually seeing Tony Robbins get off stage and go to his wife and go, was that okay? Like, what did you think? And I was like, okay, I need to take a step back and realize that if somebody who's speaking to that many people is still going to somebody and going, was that okay? Like, did I do? I'm fine. So I love that perspective. And I think it's true. We need to, take that step back and realize that whoever it is that we're looking at was where we were at one point.
Definitely. And I had a counselor and coach who, Dr. Marshall Levine, who said it best. He's, courage is not the absence of fear. It's having the fear and choosing to do it anyway, and that was a huge shift for me too, because you're still nervous, you're still scared, you're still all these things. And the difference between two people is not that one of them isn't scared. It's that two people at the same point, it's not that one of them isn't scared. It's that one of them has the courage to go through it and go be terrified with a smile on their face and try to share what they know. And then by the end, you realize you taught some people some stuff and it went great and you have a lot to offer. And, the whole thing is a process of encouraging yourself and learning from the experience, and rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I love that. So if someone's interested in working with you or seeing how you can help their business, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you and your company?
Yeah, you could just visit our website, user10.com, so user10.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, and that's pretty much it. I'm not too active on the other social channels.
That's okay. Focus on one, right?
I don't even focus on LinkedIn.
Well, there you go. That's your homework. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. I learned so much, and I love the tips that you gave.
Thanks for having me. I hope it was helpful. I enjoyed talking with you, and I love, talking about this stuff. It means a lot to me. It brings me a lot of joy.
I learned a lot in this episode, but for me, I think the biggest takeaway was really being sure that who I was hiring for the job I wanted to get done was the right person, and really researching those modalities and what they entail is really important and something that I'm going to take forward with me. I want to know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. Head to our social media pages, just look up Fox Talks Business, and let me know what your takeaway was. Don't forget, you can always go to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca. Click on blogs at the top of the page, and you'll be able to find everywhere that you can get a hold of Andrew if you're ready to take your business to the next level. Again, our mastermind is now open. I am so excited to be starting another 6-week mastermind where I'm going to talk with small businesses and teach them how to use collaborations to build brand awareness, to build business relationships, and to start thinking outside of the box of your business. Just head to Masterminds on our website to get all of the details on how you can sign up. Space is limited, as we do reserve only 15 spots for this class so that everybody gets a chance for one-on-one help, and that we can all work as a collaborative group together. I'm really excited to see you there. If you have any questions about the mastermind or just want to do a discovery call to see if it's for you, you can also find that on our website. And I'm more than happy to chat with you and see where you are and if this would be something that is beneficial to you. If you just want to learn a little bit of some tips and tricks, you can always see me live every Tuesday morning at 9:30 Mountain Standard Time on Facebook and Instagram. I do a live answering your questions and giving you some tips and insights into how I am working with collaborations for myself and my clients. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're trying to completely rebrand, whether you're looking to take your business to the next level, or whether you just want to freshen stuff up, make sure that you're having fun. Because hey, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?